If you're like me, you're probably struggling with the whole breastfeeding and weight loss thing. I was so excited to breastfeed our twins, but the experience wasn't quite what I thought it would be. In this video, I'm going to share my entire breastfeeding journey, including why I stopped, how I stopped, and when I stopped. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Elle. And as this video title suggests, I'm a mum to twins who are now 11 months old. I've been meaning to film this video for a while because I've had so many questions about my breastfeeding journey, including why I stopped. And also, in this video, I'm going to be very honest and share why breastfeeding didn't really help me lose weight. In fact, it kind of made things a lot harder. This video is going to be a little bit different because it's a sit down, catch up, chatty video. I've got my coffee, so it's a little chatty coffee video. I hope you have your beverage of choice with you. I'm having an iced Americano with a little splash of cream. The ice is all melted though, which is why I love iced coffees. It doesn't matter if it takes me a long time to drink them. So grab your drink of choice and settle in because we're about to catch up. The twins are our first babies, so I don't have the experience of only having one baby. Literally all I know is twins. So if you're a twin mum or a twin mum to be, then this might be helpful. And even if you have one baby, you might be able to still relate just to the experience that I had with breastfeeding. But one of the things that I found quite difficult from the start was that nobody expected me to be able to breastfeed both babies. The positives of that is that I had no pressure at all to breastfeed, and I feel like a lot of mums have this pressure put on them that they must breastfeed, they must be successful at it, they must love it, and they must just do it for an indefinite period of time. And that doesn't work for everybody, and that's okay. The expectation for me was that we would formula feed and I wouldn't be able to breastfeed at all. I actually have always wanted to give it a try. It's something that I just wanted to have like as an experience, as part of my pregnancy, motherhood experience. If I was able to breastfeed, I wanted to give it a go. I didn't actually have advice and support given to me from our obstetrician, from our midwife, none of that. I even went to a breastfeeding course when I was pregnant that was run by a lactation consultant, and that was done through our district health board where I live. So there might be classes and courses that you can sign up to that are free or low cost, where you can get tips and advice around latching, how to latch, all of that, because I learned so much. I had no idea that a baby, like how a baby latches onto your nipples, until I went to that class. So it was really, really helpful. But the advice and the tips and the suggestions that they were giving in that class was only suited to mothers of singletons, of one baby. With the twins, you've got a couple of choices. You can feed one baby at a time, if that works, or you can tandem feed. It's tricky either way, because with twins, they're two separate babies. They're not on the same schedule. I decided that I wanted to give tandem breastfeeding a try because it was more efficient and that they both do it at the same time, it's done. And one of the struggles that you have as a twin mum breastfeeding, or not breastfeeding, actually just feeding a baby, is that if they're not on the same schedule, the break that you get between the next feed, change, sleep cycle that a newborn has is made so much shorter. With twins, if you can imagine, if you were doing one baby on that schedule, the next baby might be up in 30 minutes time. And then by the time you've finished, which, you know, takes about 45 minutes, I guess, with a newborn to do everything, feed them, change them, wind them. They're so hard to burp sometimes. All of that, and then put them down. And then once they're down, get everything ready for when they wake up. The next baby could be awake. Whereas if you put them both on the same schedule, you at least hopefully have a little bit more time in between. That's one of the big challenges of feeding the twins, is that if you choose to do it separately, you know, it's going to be really hard on you and your scheduling. And then if you do it together, you've got the challenges associated with doing that. But regardless of which approach you take, I found it very frustrating before the twins were even here that I didn't have the support or advice given to me. When the babies were born in the hospital, they latched them onto me when I was in recovery, and that was the most magical experience of my life. I couldn't believe like how a baby is put on your chest and they wiggle their way down and attach, and I had one on each side of me. That moment is actually captured in our labor and delivery vlog, and it was incredible. So the nurses in the hospital did help with that, but then going forward from that, we were delivered to our room formula and bottles. So the twins, right from the moment they were born, had both breastfeeding and formula bottles. I kept latching them and trying to latch them and trying to breastfeed to help my milk come through, but the nurses in the hospital kept telling me not to worry about it, don't worry about breastfeeding, don't bother with that, just go straight into bottle feeding. It was kind of a good approach that we took though, because our babies were able to go between bottle and boob without any nipple confusion. And that's something that I've had a lot of messages from mums being really concerned about, who are about to have a baby and they're asking, can you do a bottle and breastfeeding at the same time? Our experience was yes, and we had no problems with that. And that is actually really good as well if you choose to breastfeed and you have twins, because if you pump and you have milk that you can put into a bottle, then you can just feed one baby at a time breastfeeding, and somebody else can bottle feed the other baby. There was a lactation consultant in our hospital, and I asked if I would be able to see them and talk to them and get some advice around how to latch the babies. The nurses were hesitant to send that lactation consultant to me, but finally they agreed. When the lactation consultant came into my room, they didn't even want to see me try to latch the babies. And I had brought with me my twin feeding pillows. I had a tandem pillow that the babies both were on to be able to get them at the right position. She didn't even want to see if I was doing it right. She just said, you know, I wouldn't bother with that. And that was kind of all the support and advice that she gave me. So at that point, I sent an email and reached out to a private lactation consultant, which I'm so grateful that we had the financial means to be able to hire somebody, because I know it's not something that everybody is able to do. I've since found out that you can be referred to a lactation consultant who comes to your home, and you can be referred to that person through your midwife, and that service is made available through Plunkett. But again, I think the reason I wasn't offered that is because everybody just was trying to direct me away from breastfeeding, which is a real shame. Having that lactation consultant come into my house, Julia, we captured that moment as well on a vlog, was so helpful. So Julia watched me feed both babies. She gave me advice. She also gave me some advice on supplements and things that I could do to continue to increase my milk supply, because milk supply is one of those things that it's so circular. The more your baby feeds, the more milk you produce to be able to meet their needs. And also, after meeting with Julia and getting her advice, she also suggested that I pump. Pumping isn't something that everybody needs to do, but for me it made a lot of sense as part of my breastfeeding journey, because if I pumped, it helped to continue to stimulate my milk supply, given that the babies were having formula, and that expressed milk that I was able to get, we were able to put that into the bottles and offer that to babies. I was also able to freeze it. It gave us choices so that we didn't have to both always be here to feed the babies. We encountered some challenges. The lactation consultant checked both Revi and Rue had tongue tie. Revi didn't, but I noticed that Rue had real difficulties latching and staying latched for feeds as well. He would get really frustrated, he would come off all the time, and that was a real challenge when you're feeding both babies at once, because I would need help when they were really little to get them into the perfect position. So Dave would sort of build up the pillows for me, and we'd put the breastfeeding pillow on top of that, and then he would help me position the babies. So we'd get one baby latched and then the next baby latched, and then if one came off, as I was trying to relatch that baby, the other one would come off. So it was a juggle, and at first it was a really awkward thing that didn't feel natural, and it was hard. I wanted to give up probably every time, or nearly every time I fed for the first 2 weeks. And I just kept telling myself to push through, because everything that's new, at least my experiences, everything that's new is hard, it's foreign, it's difficult. So I didn't want to give up before I'd given myself some time to kind of like get used to it and get comfortable with it and kind of figure out what felt right. But during those first 2 weeks, knowing that Rue had tongue tie, and we found that out really early on, we had the decision, our first decision as parents, what we wanted to do about that. They kind of scale tongue tie, and our midwife agreed that Rue's tongue tie was in a place where we needed to make a decision if we wanted to have a procedure done to remove the tongue tie, to cut it, or just leave it and see what happens. Because over time, a baby can sort of fix itself. Dave and I decided that we would have the procedure done. We were referred to the specialist, and we went to that appointment, and at that appointment, he gave us his advice that, you know, in our position, he would do the procedure given the difficulties we were describing when it came to feeding Rue. Once that procedure was done, it was an instant change. We fed Rue right after he had the procedure. Amazing. It was amazing. He was able to feed, he was able to stay latched, he was able to latch quickly, and that frustration that he would get with not being able to feed went away. So that was the right decision for us, and that helped kind of get over that first challenge. The other challenge that we had with breastfeeding was Thrush. I would get Thrush, Rue would get Thrush, then Rue would have Thrush, you'd pass it to Revy, and so it was the three of us trying to like get it under control. We finally got antibiotics, I believe, that fixed it, but that was a real struggle, and it made feeding really, really, really painful. It was like electric shock kind of feeling. And at that time I reached back out to my lactation consultant and described what was going on, and went to my doctor, and yeah, we finally were able to get past that. I never had cracked nipples, and I never had blocked milk ducts, any of that kind of thing. I swore by putting these gel pads, which I'll insert here on the screen. I kept those in the fridge, and I would put them on my nipples after I had been feeding. I remember the feeling of it feeling really hot because my boobs obviously had stretched so much and was so tight and so full, and putting that over them really helped kind of cool them down, and yeah, it just made me feel a lot better. And I also swore by using lanolin cream. After getting Thrush, I only had it once, but it was a real pain to get rid of it because there were the three of us trying to get all of us under control. I bought so many bras so that I was changing my bras constantly because I was constantly leaking, and I also stopped using reusable breast pads. Instead, I was using the disposable ones so that I would only wear them for a short period of time, swap them out, and stay on top of that kind of hygiene around it. Even though I found ways to get over those challenges that I had, and the first 2 weeks obviously passed and I continued with things, I got into a rhythm with my feeding, my pumping, like that kind of schedule. I would try to pump 3 to 4 times a day, and the way in which I was able to do that is having a pump that I could wear with a pumping bra. So I would wear a pumping bra, and I would literally put my electronic pump in my dressing gown pocket and walk around the house pumping, because I very rarely had my hands free. If I wasn't holding 1 or 2 babies, I had to be doing something. There was always laundry to do, bottles to clean. There was so much stuff that just constantly needed to be done. So that helped immensely, being able to just do it hands-free. And I also had a travel pump too. Both of the pumps that I used, chef's kiss, love them. I don't have them currently because I have 2 separate friends who are borrowing each of those pumps, but they are incredible, and you can purchase them from More Than Milk, who actually was my lactation consultant. Julia is a private lactation consultant, and she also has this amazing online store where I bought all of my supplements to help increase my milk supply, and those are where my pumps are from too. My pumps were kindly gifted to me from Julia, and actually at the time that this video is going live on my Instagram, Julia and I are going to be partnering together to do a very, very cool giveaway where you can win yourself something from More Than Milk. So if you are not following me on Instagram, make sure you go over and check me out and check out this giveaway, because it is one you do not want to miss. Those 2 pumps definitely made my life easier, and it meant that I could pump while doing things. But my goal, weirdly, was I wanted to get to 6 months of breastfeeding the twins. And it wasn't exclusively breastfeeding, because we did supplement with formula. Over the course of breastfeeding, I'm just feeling my boobs now, I don't know why, I guess because I'm talking about it. I was a 10 double D cup size before my pregnancy. At the time that I was breastfeeding the twins, I was a 14F, which is a pretty huge change. My boobs were huge. They felt huge to me, and they were. Now that I've stopped breastfeeding, I'm a 12 double D. Even though I weigh less than I did when I was a 10 double D, I feel like my rib cage has expanded, so my size has changed. The benefits of feeding the twins were really just the closeness. I loved the feeling of being close to them and having those cuddles. I also would sometimes co-sleep with a baby in the spare bed if they were unsettled or not well during the night, and doing that allowed me to be able to feed them during the night, which I feel helped them when they were sick to be able to kind of bounce back faster by being able to get access, I guess, to the antibodies that I was producing. And I loved breastfeeding for that. I also loved the convenience. It was so convenient to literally just be able to pop out a boob, feed them. You don't have to get the water to the right temperature, the milk, you know, just right, mix everything up. It's done right away. We were so lucky that my sister bought us our absolute favorite and must-have baby product. It's literally been our most used thing that we've had since we've had the babies, and that is our baby breezer machine, which is essentially a formula machine for making the perfect bottle of formula just all mixed up. It's kind of like an espresso machine for formula. I love it so much. So once we got that, that definitely made our life a lot easier. But when you're out and about having to heat up your water, having to mix in your formula, it's a pain. Whereas breast milk is like ready to go. It's easy peasy. So I loved that part of it. But the entire time that I was breastfeeding the twins, I don't know how to describe it, but I literally just didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like myself for a few reasons. Number one, I always felt like I was a little bit run down all the time. Like I just always felt like off. Like I never felt like I was, I don't know. It's just, I always felt like I was really just a bit run down. And that would have definitely been part of the fact that we had newborns, twins, 2 of them, super sleep deprived, all of that. But breastfeeding and producing milk is just, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for your body. The second part of why I didn't feel like myself during that time was the extra weight that I was carrying. I gained about 40 kilos It was more, but I know that I gained at least 40 kilos in my pregnancy. And I was able to lose some of that just by delivering the twins, obviously, with, you know, the water weight, bloating, all of that stuff. But the other weight, it just stuck around. It was like, as I was breastfeeding, my body was just holding on to the weight, and the weight that I was carrying, the extra 20 kilos, made it uncomfortable getting up and off the floor, getting down to the twins. My joints felt inflamed and sore and painful. And I did slowly start to make healthier food choices, going back to low carb and introducing keto foods. I do have an entire video dedicated to going back keto while breastfeeding. And the reason I say keto while breastfeeding is that the keto version of breastfeeding looks different than a standard version of following keto. And that's because your nutritional needs are different, and that's because the way in which your body is processing food is different. But as I did that and I ditched the refined sugar, the refined carbs, I was able to lose some weight. But after that kind of initial shift, my body just continued to hold on to the weight. And I found that I was ravenous as well. So hungry all the time. And it's no surprise because I was really just trying to keep up with my milk supply. But with the amount of food I was eating, I'm not surprised that I gained weight. There are people out there who say that once they start breastfeeding, the weight just melts off them, but that was just not my experience. Just not my experience. But it was worth it to me to continue breastfeeding and to continue feeling uncomfortable and not myself for a little while longer, because I wanted to get to that 6-month mark and then make a decision about what I wanted to do. The reason I wanted to do that was to be able to continue to give the twins the benefit of breast milk for as long as possible, basically. Before I go on to the how I stopped, why I stopped part of this video, I just want to share some of my top tips for breastfeeding twins. And they are: advocate for yourself if you want support around giving it a go and trying. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Whatever happens, happens. Just go with it. I honestly think twin mums are particularly good at that because you can't control what's going on. There are two babies, they control you. And I think twin mums are generally quite good at just kind of going with the flow. But just a reminder, just to go with it and see what happens. Some of the key products that really helped me were having the tandem feeding pillow. And even once I stopped breastfeeding the twins, or the times that I would bottle feed both twins, that pillow was great because I was able to position both of them there safely and have a place where I could feed them from. So I loved that pillow so much. I also found that having those products that I mentioned to help not have any cracked nipples, that kind of thing, really helped because that's super uncomfortable. Having a good feeding bra, and for me one that was also a pumping bra, because having a hospital grade pump was also a must-have for me. I would also advise you to really think about what makes the most sense in terms of a strategy for you and your family. And this is if you have twins, this is if you just have one baby. I didn't realize before having the twins that if you exclusively breastfeed, that's it. You are the source of food for your baby. So you need to be with your baby when your baby needs to eat. If your baby is able to take a bottle, then you don't have to be there present. So whatever works for you is the best choice. For us, having the babies being able to be bottle fed and breastfed was the best choice for us, and we did not have any issues with nipple confusion. So just have a real think about that and what you would like to do. And even if you start out exclusively breastfeeding and you find that you just need a break and you need some support, it's okay to switch things up as well. When it comes to stopping breastfeeding, talk to your doctor, talk to your midwife, talk to your plunket nurse about how you should stop and what is the best option for you. As the 6-month mark was approaching, I felt so torn about my decision to stop. And honestly, I cried multiple times a day. I feel emotional even just thinking back to that time because I had so much guilt. I was able to breastfeed the twins, not exclusively, but I was able to do it and offer it as like a supplementary source of nutrition to them. And here I was thinking about stopping when some people are unable to breastfeed at all and they would love to be able to continue doing it. But for me, some of the reasons why I really wanted to stop, I'm just gonna be honest, and I feel nervous and apprehensive to share these because I know how judgy and critical people can be. But honestly, I started to feel more and more like I just wanted my body back. And part of that is our journey with getting pregnant included 2 pregnancy losses before our successful pregnancy with the twins. And after those miscarriages, I made a lot of changes to my lifestyle. And I felt like in doing some of those changes, choices were taken away from me and I wanted to get autonomy back. And one of those big changes was actually cutting out coffee altogether, like all caffeine. And I love coffee. I love coffee. I drank coffee moderately when I was breastfeeding the twins, so it was back. But small things like that, I just wanted to get back. I didn't want to have to be thinking about, you know, I can't have this drink, I can't do this because I'm breastfeeding. Like I just wanted to get back to feeling myself. And that, I know, may sound really selfish, but because I had been doing that for so long, it had probably been like 18 months of doing that and having to always think about somebody else rather than just doing something, just doing whatever I wanted. And that was starting to just kind of like tire me out and make me feel a little bit exhausted. I also was getting really feeling run down and sore. I did genuinely feel like it was connected to breastfeeding because when I was breastfeeding, at the times that I was breastfeeding, I felt exhausted. I felt tired as I was doing it. I also was sick of feeling nauseous when I hadn't eaten enough food. So I needed to be making sure that I was constantly eating and eating enough so that I didn't feel sick like I was gonna throw up. And I hated that. I hated that as well. Yeah, so those were kind of the reasons why, like personally, selfishly, I wanted to stop breastfeeding. And we also had an overseas trip booked with the twins. And I was at a crossroads because if I continue to breastfeed, I needed to also bring with me my pump, my, you know, paraphernalia to be able to store breast milk in a blazing hot summer. Or do we just move to formula and then just bring the stuff that's needed for that? So lots and lots of tears, lots and lots of tears. So many text messages between myself and my best friend, myself and my mum, having the same conversation. It was all I could think about. It was all I was focusing on was, do I stop? Do I continue? Do I stop? Do I continue? And weighing up the 2, I felt like I should stop. And I wondered if, once I stopped, would I regret it? Would I regret it? And then what do you do once you've regretted it and you've stopped? But my best friend said to me, her experience was once she stopped, she felt like an entirely new person. So I decided to stop. I just decided that I would stop. I started pulling back the amount of times that I was breastfeeding. Rue took to that like a fish in water. He was so happy to have the bottle and be able to, I think, just get his food faster. So he preferred that. Revy, she liked, I think, more than anything, just the comfort and the snuggling and the being close to me. So with Revy, it was a slower transition. If you're looking for advice on how to kind of slowly wean off breastfeeding and move to feeding with a bottle, if that's milk that you've already expressed or just expressed milk or formula, then gradually dropping down the amount of times that you are breastfeeding your baby, I found was the easiest way to do that. I did the same thing with pumping as well. I slowly reduced down the amount of times that I was pumping. I just started to slowly wean off of doing those things until I was no longer breastfeeding and I was no longer pumping. But over that time, it is important to continue to offer support and comfort to your baby if they need that additional time like Revi did. While we were away in America, babies had turned 6 months, so I was no longer breastfeeding, I was no longer pumping, and honestly, my friend was right. Once I stopped, I genuinely felt so different. I felt like my old self again. I remember being on holiday, my mum was with us, and I remember saying to my mum, I feel like myself inside again. And I think that may have actually been hormones too, because breastfeeding, your hormones are still working overtime, but very quickly I started to feel more and more like myself again. If I could go back, I would do the exact same thing that I did. I wouldn't change it at all, except for maybe getting more support at the start, but I wouldn't change it. It was an amazing, amazing experience, one that I am so grateful that I had. But once I stopped, I felt more like myself. And while we were away, I ate whatever, but my weight, I didn't gain any weight while traveling, which is kind of crazy because I ate whatever in crazy amounts. But I think that was partly just because we were so active with the twins. There was really no downtime. You're very, very busy when you're traveling with a baby, let alone 2 babies. And then when I came home, I was able to get straight back in to my keto low carb kind of way of eating. And the weight literally just fell off of me. It was crazy. I have never lost weight that quickly before. And there are a couple of reasons why I feel like that happened, which I'm going to go into in a separate video, all about my postpartum weight loss tips and tricks if you're looking for ways to kind of move the weight off faster. The reason why it was really helpful to do that was I felt like moving around was so much easier. I lost something like 7 kilos in my first month of getting back into Welle Club, which is my healthy lifestyle and keto recipe app, following those recipes and those meals and doing our Welle Club challenge, which we run throughout the year. If you want to check out Welle Club, there's always a link in the description box below, but I'll share more about that in my weight loss journey in another video. But part of the reason why it was a lot easier for me to lose the weight once I stopped breastfeeding was I didn't feel like I was starving all the time. And that was really, really hard when you are so hungry, needing to eat all the time. You know, you just got to do it. But once I stopped breastfeeding, it felt like my appetite levels got kind of back to baseline, and it was a lot easier to be able to make healthier choices and not be held ransom to cravings and like my hormonal needs. That is my experience breastfeeding the twins for 6 months. Magical, and I'm so, so grateful that I was able to have that experience with them. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Like I said, super different kind of video from what I usually share. I've still got a little bit more coffee that I need to finish, so I'm going to end this video here. But if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Support means the world to me. And if you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. There is lots coming with weight loss tips and tricks, as well as days of my life as a mum, juggling work, the twins, all of that stuff. I can't wait to see you guys in the next video very soon. Bye.